All right, so we are live on YouTube and very happy to have this meeting again. Thank you so much, Rachel, for creating time. We had a session last year about basically about the education system in Germany, which went very well. And Rachel was very resourceful with her information. I will put the video in the chat if you have not watched the video before, just in case the information might be of help to you. So if you're new here and you don't know who we are a community of Kenyan professionals who are based in Germany. We share a lot of information on how to grow your career here, but also how to settle in this country. And we have a very special ministry of parents and children. And that is why we do such sessions. So before we start, I want to share my screen briefly. And just give me a minute. I show you what we do, and then we continue. So, yeah. So this is our website. You can visit our website to see what we do, www.agcareerhub.com. So we have the career desk where we share a lot of information about people who would like to know about how to study and work in Germany. We have the business desk on different topics on investment opportunities in Germany and back in Kenya. We have events. So like today, if you click there, you see the events that this one was yesterday, and today we have this. And on the 15th of June, please save the date. That's when we plan to have our event, our meetup in Frankfurt. More details will be published later on. And then you can also see some of the services that we offer and what we do. And very also honored to share a very special project to me that Rachel has been working on. And this is a wonderful book. And as you can see, if you have not read the book, she'll tell us more about the book. It is Teach My Heart, Unveiling the Journey of Migrant Children in this country. And the book is very rich, is very, I mean, when you read the book, you if you're in that profession, you feel very concerned. But it's a book that is supposed to educate people, especially in the education sectors, to know how to treat every child equally. So I've read the book, but I will not share so much details. And Rachel will tell us later on where to get the book. These are her daughters, her wonderful daughters. And I decided to share the book so that at least if you're here, you would like to support the project, you can send a small donation to support the book, among many other projects. She's an advocate for the Black children in this country, and I will share her PayPal details there. Feel free to send your token to support the project so that at least, yeah, everything revolves around money, but basically it's about to support that child out there who might need our support. So I'll hand over the microphone to you, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and over to you. Let me stop sharing your screen, and I'll also put the screenshot in the chat. And asante sana.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Rachael. I think I've just started with the classical teacher thing, greeting everyone and always expecting people to respond. On Zoom, you can't. I don't expect you to. But nonetheless, good evening. My name is Rachael Okongo, like Njoki has said. I am a Kenyan. For people interested, I've been here, I think, for around 26 years. I think at some point I stopped counting. So that's my poor math without correcting myself. I am a mom, so if people are wondering what gives me the right to talk about children, I am a mother to 4 children between the ages of, I think, 23 and 2 years old. And I am a teacher as well, teaching at a primary school, and I also work at the university mentoring future education students during their bachelor's and their master's studies before we unleash them into the real world of dealing with our children. So yeah, that's where my passion for education comes from, first of all, as a teacher, and second of all, as a mother. And the worst case is as an African mother, because Germany can turn you into an angry Black parent if you do not take care of yourself, or if you do not get your resources right. So last time we just talked about the German education, basically. So today we are going to talk about the changing of schools, moving your child from a primary school, or in some other states, it's an intermediate school, Orientierungsschule or a Mittelschule, to the higher level school. I'm leaving the word gymnasium out with intent, because not every child belongs in a gymnasium. And I'm proudly saying that as a teacher, because parents hate hearing this. And I think I did not want to hear this 10 years ago. But today I'm one of the people who advocate for not every child belongs to a gymnasium. And that's why I'm leaving the word out. So I'm just going to say Oberschule. But we'll get to talk about the different kinds of schools. So for many parents, or actually I think for all of us, the first half year of the academic year is over. Children are bringing report forms home. I was keen to listen to find out which parents were going to say something. So we have children ranging from class 2, I guess, if they're 8, 1 or 2, and class 2, class 3, class 5, I've counted, and I think we have higher ones. I'm assuming we have primary school parents here on this call, because it's actually changing to other schools. So the first thing I would like to say is, if we are changing schools, we need to know, why are we even changing schools? I've seen we have two other nations beside Kenya involved. So I'm not so sure about your education systems, but in Kenya, we do have 8 years of primary school. And it's just last week, I was telling a colleague of mine, oh my goodness, I was so blessed to have been in a primary school for 8 years. I had like basically the first 7 years of school to play and not be worried about where I'm going to land in high school. I mean, you have your parents drumming things after you, especially us as parents. I'm assuming we are all over 24. So we all went through the 844 system. And you didn't worry about where you go to high school. The pressure came later. In Germany, our children, as young as the age of 2, are already being trimmed for what kind of high schools they will be joining, which is not a bad thing. But imagine the pressure the child goes through at the age of 9. If you look at the different states, I decided to note down the different states, and just to see after what age do they send their children to high school. And most of these children are going to high school after class 4. In class 4, they are 9 or 10. I mean, if they're old, they're 10. If they repeated a class, they're 11. Or if they joined later, depending on your state, if children join at 7, or your child did not meet the cut of that year, so they end up joining at 7, and parents think that's a bad thing, I'd say no, it's a blessing for your child to have more time to play in nursery school. So most of these children joining high school, moving from a primary school that mostly has at most 300 to 400 children, if it's big. I'm talking of a primary school that has probably 5 streams times 20 kids in class or 25 kids in class. There'll not be more than 400 children. And then at the age of 10, you're taken to a school that has 1,000 kids in it. And never mind, you're 9 years old, but you're going to school with 18 and 19-year-olds. And you're sharing the same compound with them. So this is something most of us are never prepared for, to realize what pressure our children go through just by virtue of this change. And that I'm not talking about the African child, I'm talking about every child. So currently in Germany, we have just 2 or 3 states that allow children to stay in school until grade 6. That's Berlin and our neighbor Brandenburg. And in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, you can take your child to an Orientierungsschule between grade 5 and 6 before they now join the real high school. But most of the other states insist that the children join school at grade 5, high school at grade 5. So they're basically very young. And then now I come to us African parents or migrant parents. Germans, because they went through this system, they know when to start working on their kids. I'm not going to use the word put pressure, because all parents do put pressure one way or another. but they know when to start supporting. I know when my child joins class 1, it's a playing phase. They will learn whatever they need to learn. They'll get whatever help they need to get. But basically, it's a kindergarten child still learning what the education system is about. But latest, when they get to class 3, Germans already start finding out, how is my child performing in school? I don't know. We have lots of parents on this call. I can see 16 people. So minus Njoki and I, there are 14 parents involved. When was the last time you spoke to your child's teacher and asked how your child is performing at school? When was the last time you helped them with their assignment? When was the last time you asked your teacher, especially if your child is in grade 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, what kind of a school do you think my child should get into? And this is a question I didn't ask myself in my younger years when I was parenting my first 2 older kids. It was the Kenyan thing. My kids will go to the university. I mean, all Kenyans go to school. We expect you to pass your exams. And if you pass your exams, you go to a university. If you don't pass that well, there's a polytechnic. You'll go do a diploma or you'll do a certificate. It's as easy as that. But this thing called abitua, in Kenya, it's not a question. Everyone gets to do KCSE. In Germany, it's a question of if. And this if now depends on you, the parent, and it depends on you, the child. So this leads me to, how do we grade? Which is why you people are all here. How do we grade? What's the grading system like? For all the states in Germany, there are 2 important subjects, German and mathematics. So depending on which school you want your child to go to, their German and math grades shout the loudest. Most of our African children, including the ones I've seen in my house, excel at sports somehow. Even if they're very weak, like they don't want to. I have a teenager who probably doesn't like doing sports anymore. But even those ones, in PE, you'll find them having, we call it sport here, you'll find them having eins, zwei. You barely hear of an African child having a 3 or a 4 in sports, unless they're ill-behaved. Most are actually good. We'll excel in other subjects, but how do we perform in German? Now, for your child to join a gymnasium, the child must have at least a 2 to a 2.5 in German. It must have at least a 2 or a 2.5 in math, depending on your state. If you're unlucky and you live in a state like Berlin and you need your child to join a gymnasium, we actually expect your child to have a 1 point something. This is an A. How many of you got A's in maths in primary school? And with A, I mean you used to get 95% because it's 95% that's the one. So I'll quickly take you over the grades. It's good I've been marking, so they're completely... Yeah, I have my exams here on my table. I'm correcting papers and doing grades. So I'll take you through the grades. A grade 1 is mostly 95 to 100%. In some states, it's 96. Some schools may change it.
So this is Note 1.
Note 1. 95 bis 100%. So if you see your child got a 1, please tell them you're very proud of them. A 2 is 80 to 94%. 3 is 70 to 79. Wait, 66 to 79, now depending on your state. In Berlin, it's actually much lower. But then again, we are at the bottom of the education system, kind of the German PISA. So we need to protect our children's emotions. And then a 4 usually goes back to 50%, 50 to 64%, 63%, or in some states like Berlin, where we are now very, very kind with our children, it's 45% to maybe 55 or 60%, depending on your state. Now, you as the parent, once you know these are the grades your child has, you can decide what school do you think your child should go to. If you want to send your child to a gymnasium, all states will consider German and math. And then there are the next 2 core subjects that come in. science. It's called Sachkunde or Sachunterricht, depending on where you are. How good is your child in science? And with this, I don't mean the science that you read for the exam and then you passed. With this, I mean general knowledge. I think in the previous talk, I had explained that we grade, most of the grades are only 50% of the performance in class. And the other 50 or 60% is your performance on paper. So the exams that your children do, in almost every Bundesland, they do 2 math papers and 2 German papers per semester, per Halbjahr, per 6 months. So these 2 papers, they carry 50%, yes, but they don't decide about your child's future. Your child's future is decided by your child's performance in class. So now that we have put math and German, we now add science. Your child will only perform good in science if its German skills are adequate. You can have all the general knowledge you'd like to have, but if you cannot reproduce it on paper when you get those Sachkunde or Sachunterricht exams, it doesn't help you much. I teach Sachunterricht also, and I'll just say from experience, I just corrected some papers, and you actually feel sorry for children because I actually understand what you're trying to tell me. It's the language that's killing it off for you. So now we get back to the grading. We have German and math. We've added science, the next core subject in all Bundesländer. And science now depends on 2 things: your child's general knowledge and your child's language skills. And then after this, besides the knowledge and the language skills, its ability to reproduce what it knows. This is now the first place where intellect is really tested. Intellect might be tested in maths, depending on how you understand things and stuff. But Sachunterricht is the time when you're placed for a question and you're forced to think. Many years ago, I used to think they're forcing these children to think too early. Today, I'm glad they do it so early because children can't think. Even toddlers can't think. It's only that sometimes we can't get into their heads and see what they're thinking about. So we add Sachunterricht. And then, depending on your Bundesland, you get another 4th subject. Now, like this in Berlin and Brandenburg, we would have the 4th subject, and in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern also, which is English. And English is taught as a foreign language. So by then, these kids have probably had what we would call A1 English. What is your English grade? If you can prove that in all these 4 subjects, you have the grade 1 or 2, by all means, send your child to a gymnasium. Now I've gotten to using the word I did not want to use, but now it's the time to use it. By all means, send your child to a gymnasium. And then depending on your state, they'll say, we even allow children with a 2.1 to a 2.5 to join. I mean, even in Berlin, we say up to 2.7. But clearly, most high schools will not take those children. Unless you're in a place where parents don't like that school, then they will take them. But most high schools will know this is a child who will struggle to keep up. Unless the parents, the teachers write an extra note, is actually a good child, but the last 1 year, this child has just been playing around. And most of these report forms for going to high school are decided now. Like, that is where I've been marking the whole day. We're deciding right now with this half-year report form, are you joining high school or are you not joining high school? In a few states like Sachsen, I think it was Sachsen, and let me check up in my notes, and Baden-Württemberg, it is at the end of grade 4. But you see, you still have to deal with this when your child is in grade 4, mostly. So they decide then, okay, which school are we sending you to? So you either need, basically the worst grade your child is allowed to have to join a gymnasium is a 2.7. So how do we decide which children will join the gymnasium? When I'm deciding which child will join the gymnasium, first of all, I'm looking at the grade, the academic performance. Is this child up to task? And is this child up to task because they want to and not because their parents want to? Are they doing this by themselves? Because I'm sure you all know helicopter Elton. You've heard about them, the helicoptering parents who you'll take your child to school, grade 1, and they'll tell you, my child can already explain Einstein's theories and stuff like that. I mean, those kids exist. They're weird, but they do exist. But in the case of us foreigners, I've seen most of us complain that our children did not get into the gymnasium, although they deserved it. Yes, we do have those cases where children did not get in there because, although they deserved it, because the system worked against them. They are there. And yet, sometimes our children are better off not being in there. There is one, so much pressure to keep up with the grades. Two, and the pressure is from the school side, because once you enter gymnasium, I'm actually expecting you to be able to work by yourself. You're now not a child chasing after, did you do your assignments? Did you do this and this? No, you're supposed to be able to do all that by yourself. Secondly, now this child comes home, there's too much homework. So, and the parents are mostly still at work. It's supposed to be able to do the assignments by itself without parental help. You guys are going to excuse, once in a while, there's a toddler screaming in my background. There she goes. Sorry about that. So I needed to apologize. So you just have to look for you as a parent. Is this what I want for my child? So my child's grades matter. The next thing, when I'm going to be choosing this school, now I'm talking about just the grades first. Now I finished that, I realized my child has a 3, but it could actually get a 2. I need to ask myself, at what point did my child lose not getting that 2? Is it because I did not support my child enough? Is it because the exams were just difficult? Is it because my child is going through something at home? Maybe separation affects children. It affects all those things we as parents go through, affect our children. Maybe the change of living environment. 2 people have moved homes. People have moved homes. People have changed schools. Someone in the family has passed away. All this will affect your child's performance. So you might have an A candidate or an Einserkind still getting 3s and 4s. And if that happens, that's the time you approach the teacher and say, by the way, remember my child's school history. My child actually should be in a gymnasium. And many times, teachers are not monsters. Teachers are human beings with feelings, with emotions, with children. They will actually think back and say, yeah, by the way, that happened. So we'll support you. And they'll actually, despite whatever is written there, they'll write a note there. Yeah, we still recommend this nonetheless. It has happened. And the high schools have had actually a complete understanding of what's happening. So now let's say your child is has just decided, this is not mine, and academic gifting is not theirs. And parents, let's be honest. There's no way you're going to force a carpenter to go and study physics. It doesn't work. And we have our dreams for our children. I know myself in my head, when I was a 22-year-old mom, I was already picturing my children's graduation. I didn't know what God had in store for them, if you're a believer. I didn't know what my children would turn out to be, but I had this picture at the back of my mind. This is what my children should be, or this is what I would like them to achieve. It's my dream for them. And then your child tells you, academia is yours. I want to be a mechanic. Now, because we come from Kenya, if you tell me you want to be a mechanic, the first picture I had of a mechanic was actually this girl in a dark, dirty blue overall, full of oil, somewhere by the road repairing cars, and I'm seeing car wheels and lots of them are spoiled. And I'll be honest, with my young mind, that was a job I wouldn't have wanted for my child, because I did not know that you can actually find joy in doing something like that. I did not know you could excel in something like that. It took me years of growing as a parent. I've had one of the parents that introduced themselves looked like a very young parent. I don't even know if she said her age, but I think in my head I already said your age. So, and your children are pretty young. So don't repeat the same mistake some of us did. When your teacher tells you, I think your child is gifted to be a cook. I'm saying that because one teacher told me that about my son, and I was like, not just because he's in the cooking club, you think he's meant to be a cook. No way. And okay, but this was a boy who was bright. But nonetheless, I'll speak from experience. He's the boy who told me, Mama, at grade 11, he told me, we are done. I'm done with school. You, that habitual, you want to have it, you can do it for yourself if you want it. I'm going to do my stuff. And he's excelling in what he's doing. His sister, who's just a year younger, said, you and your goals. No, Mama said we need to do abitua. She did her abitua, and she's almost a psychologist. So you can see two children, both with the same intellect, both raised with the same mom, who is actually a teacher, doing well wherever they were meant to be. So as parents, when we're not going to get these letters, there was, I think, a while ago, a year or 2 years ago, there was an African mom who was on the social media complaining about her child getting the wrong recommendation, the wrong MFLO. And sometimes we do complain, but we do not understand what the teachers see behind our children. Remember, your teachers spend more time with your children than you do at home. They are in school at least between 7:50 or 8 o'clock to 2 p.m. When you come back from work, the time your child left school, you didn't spend it with them. So the only other adults they see beside you, and they see a lot, are their teachers. These people know them. They know their characters. So when that MFLO comes and you're told, take your child to a real shule, do it. Who said a real shule is the stop? There are lots of people who go the long route. I actually have one of my closest German friends was sent to a real shule because she needed the real shule. And then just before she did her real Abschluss, she said, I want to become a doctor. So she read hard, she studied. She passed so well, she was told, you're not going to do an Ausbildung. You're getting into the Gymnasiale Oberstufe. It's her teachers who are making sure they place her in a school. She was placed in a school. She excelled in her abitur. She's now one of the best doctors in her Bundesland. Getting an appointment with her at the hospital is an issue. So this is for you parents, just to tell you it is possible no matter what your teachers decide for your children. Now, before your teachers decide, in almost all Bundesländer, you have 2 talks with your teachers. It's interesting that we are all obliged to have these talks with parents. We'll have the talk and tell you what we think about your child. Actually, we're going to ask you, what do you want for your child? And almost all parents come and say gymnasium, even if they know it's not a gymnasium case. But all parents say that. And then we'll ask why. So I'm preparing you for the talk if you've not yet had it. What is it you want for your child? Why do you want it for your child? Is it your vision for your child? Or is it what you think your child is good at? When you're checking high schools, changing to high school, what are the strengths of your child? I'm now moving away from the grades. I'm now getting into your child. I've moved from what kind of a learner your child is. But what are the strengths of your child? Is your child one who just picks a book and reads? Or is your child like one I once used to have, I had to give money to read? I actually had to say, if you read this book, I'll give you this amount of money. And I ended up being broke, but he ended up reading the books I needed. What kind of a child do you have? Are they sportsmen? If your child is a sportsman, look for a sport-oriented school in your neighborhood. If your child is a musician, look for a music-oriented school in your neighborhood. If your child is an artist like Njoki's, look for a school that builds on future artists. Look for something that will make your child love waking up and going to school. This is now not just the gymnasium, because even the gymnasium, they also have all these clusters. They have classes that are art-oriented, science-oriented, math-oriented, IT-oriented. Look for something that entails your child's strength. Now the question we African parents have to deal with is, what are my child's strengths? Apart from watching TV, what are my child's strengths? When was the last time you went to a museum with your child to see if they really enjoy going to museums? And now that comes our Africanness. What am I going to look for in a museum? Actually, in Swahili, a friend of mine once told me, when I told him, let's go check a museum, we'd gone as a group sightseeing. I'm sure he'll get to hear these talks at some point soon. And he was like, but now those buildings, see, they're just the same ones we've seen in Berlin. Tunaenda kutafuta nini huko? So, and that's kind of our mentality. You know, our children lose a lot because we do not do much with them. I would appeal to you, find out what are the museums in your town. Visit all of them with your child. You'll be surprised how much general knowledge they have when things are asked in class. Because that general knowledge ends up being part of their grade. When questions are asked, they raise their hands. When questions are asked, they raise their hands. Then we're like, hey, this one knows a lot. Why does it have to be other people's children and not ours? When was the last time you went and checked your child's acrobatic skills at the playground? Especially if they're 10 or 11, you don't want to go with them anymore. Or if they have a garden, you're not doing stuff with them. Or you skipping with them. When was the last time you played with them? When was the last time you told them, show me your art project? Like many times, there's so many things we would like to have for our children, we would like to have from our children, but what are we giving them? Besides waking them up, taking them to school and making sure they have food and clothes. If we do not become proactive, we are actually helping our children get lower grades. That's just the sad fact. The less I do with my child, the less grades it has. And it's sad, but you need to do it. I'm seeing my screen is getting dark. I may need someone to get me a laptop charger. I'll shout. I'll turn my microphone off.
Okay.
So now I'm back to, it is upon us to help our children get to the kinds of high schools they need to get into. And the next thing now after this, because that is part of the grading still. So you see, I've once mentioned, I think in a talk, that when your children are being graded, you're actually being graded. You, the parent. You really don't see or notice that you're being graded, but you're actually being graded because your child's grade is what you've done with your child. When was the last time you read a book with them? Oh, I can't read German. That's not an excuse. Learn German. There are books, they're nice books, resources. It's called, this is something I recommend to all African parents with very young children, like those class 2 children, the 8-year-old, the 9-year-old. Erst ich, dann du. Erst ich, dann du are books that are written in different fonts. So there's the small font for you, the parent, and there are the very large fonts for the child to read. So you actually both get your language upped skill-wise, and your child learns, and it gets more general knowledge. So with that grading system, we are grading a lot of what does not even happen at school. Because the general knowledge, they do not gain it at school, they gain it with you, and that is 50% of their grade. So now that we are done with that, now we went to the talent. We had the, what's your child's capability academic-wise? Can it learn alone? What are the talents or skills your child has? We get to the third thing. What does your child actually want? Does your child want to go to a gymnasium? No. Why are you forcing your child to go? Or does your child want to go a gymnasium and it has a Realschulabschluss or Sekundarschulabschluss, depending on where you live, or to an Orientierungsklasse or whatever? No, if your child has been given that and it wants to go to a gymnasium, by all means fight for your child, unless the grades do not speak for the child. But if your child wants to go to the other kind of school, Sit down with them and ask them why. Maybe they're afraid of the pressure. Because really, I've said it severally, before we give your child that gymnasial MPhilO, I am going to check, one, is your child up to date with this? Two, with the grade-wise? Two, is this child going to get the support it needs at home? Like, assuming they're stuck somewhere. A classical example is my daughter is in grade 10 in a gymnasium. She comes home and says, Mama, my biology teacher explains things, but I understand nothing. Can you please explain it to me? Thankfully, I have biology in my background, and I sit and explain to her. Who will explain to your child if you do not know how to explain? Especially in the early years of the gymnasium, where they need more help and the teachers cannot help. The teachers are not there. So by the time your child is getting these grades and you are trying to decide about the school, you need to ask yourself these core questions that I have posed. Why do I want this school for my child? How is my child academic-wise? What are my child's skills and talent? And then we get to, what do the teachers actually say about my child? Because these people spend a lot of time with your child. These people know your child's learning behavior. No one knows your child's learning behavior more than their teachers do. They know when your child will do things very quick. They know when your child will do things very bored. They know which subjects your child is good in. They know which subjects your child is bad in. Now, for you to get to choose the best school with your child, create a rapport with those teachers. Be the parent that actually sends an email and asks, how is my child performing? Can I have a termin with you? Take that afternoon off work or take that morning off work. We don't like morning afternoon meetings, so please don't. That's a bad one. We also have families. Ask for a morning meeting. Tell your boss you have to take care of something. Your child is the most important thing you have before your work even. Your family is so important. Their future is so important. Look for the teachers. Ask them, how is my child performing? Okay, how can I help them? I mean, even if you're told your child is a 1 candidate, there is still ground for getting better. Just because they are an A material doesn't mean they rest. Ask, how can I still support them? Are there extracurricular activities? If you're having a child who's gifted, what can I do to support this child more in their gift before they get bored with it? If you have a child who's lagging behind, where can I get help? If you're told your child needs a psychologist, goodness, they're not racist to say your child needs a psychologist. They actually love your children. I'm yet to see teachers that don't love their kids, especially at primary school. I'm yet to see teachers that do not love their children. They actually love their children. The same concern you have over your child is the same concern they do have over these children, even if they don't say it, but they do. And if you partner with them, you will have the best options chosen out for your child. So I think I've actually gone through all my notes. Is there a point I missed, Njoki?
No. I can just add a few points based on what you have said as a parent. The thing is, what I've noticed is being present in those schools really helps. It really helps you, even you, to understand the systems. It really helps you also to bond with the teachers. They know that you're there. They see you. And even checking about how your children is performing, that really helps. So I think it's up to us to really take that position and say, well, I am in Germany. I have to understand the systems here. I must be present in that school. If I don't get anything right, I ask and I support the children. So I think that's the task. And that is our takeaway tonight, that we have to take that responsibility and be there for our children and not listen to the community saying, yeah, German teachers are bad to our children. Yes, some of them are not good examples, but I think if we really step in and also interact with other teachers and other parents, then I will definitely get to that point. And also, as Rachel said, a very important thing about skills. try to support what your children can do. We grew up with different backgrounds where our parents were not in a position to support our skills. So like I personally, I wanted to do music, but if you go and tell your parents you want to do music, they think you're mad, you know, they're like, oh. I wanted to do food. I wanted to become a caterer and focus on cold kitchen, you know, those things that you just like, wow. And that really helped. Well, I didn't have a choice, so I just took a course that was there. So that time is gone, and we are living in a country which is based on skills and performance and so many other things that we do not know. So I will stop talking and maybe give other people a chance to share a comment or ask questions. And
May I say something I forgot?
yes, please.
There's one thing I forgot to mention is for the grading, we usually just take the last year. That is like now for the kids going to high school, if your Bundesland is giving report forms for high school right now, the grades that matter are this half year and the previous year. It's always just the last year that matters in almost all states. So how your child performed in grade 1, 2, 3 will not matter much grade 3 first term, but grade 3 second term and grade 4 first term will matter. For the states where you get it at the end of the year, this is now the time to push your child if you still can. But usually it's just the last 12 months before you get the recommendation is what matters most in all states. So the other grades will count. They'll be like a backup to push your child either up or down, wherever. But how they perform that year, I can give a classical example. Is just a kid who's always been on 4s all through. And then in the final year, we all know that from our childhood, we just had these guys who woke up and they went. So what will matter for this child changing will thankfully not be the previous grades on the numbered paper, on the numbers. It will be what they did that year on written paper. That's what will matter. Now, the other bit will be still the other percentage of their mundliche Mitarbeit, their oral performance. It has already been clouded by her past. So you can, even if now this is just to give hope to parents, because I'm seeing someone has just written there, this is very scary to them, but just have hope that no matter how tough it sounds, you always have this one final year to push your child. Get tuition, read extra books, watch extra documentaries, all those things to push them up, kind of. So any questions?
Thank you so much. Let me stop the recording so at least we can ask the questions freely.